I think that if you're unable to do some difficult, repetitive things in your life consistently, your probability of success is going to be very low. Going to work is repetitive, brushing your teeth is repetitive, and everyone thinks brushing teeth is boring, I think. They still do it
Yes.
because it's something adults do to be able to operate in the world. And health is so important that even if something is not the most fun thing in the world, that doing it consistently is a good idea, even if you no longer have the motivation. So that's where discipline can come in and really fill a couple of blanks. If you have a training partner or two training partners and it becomes a social activity where every day after work or 2 days a week after work, you go with them or before work and you spend the hour together and you push each other and you train hard and you laugh and you joke and you have a good time, you don't want to miss that. And you'll just keep going because your friends are there. Getting a six-pack probably isn't like the surest way to enhance your health. And there are other things.
How important is mindset when it comes to live a fit life or start the fitness journey?
At the end of the day, it's the most important thing, because if you don't have the right mindset, nobody's going to force you to be fit. You don't live in a totalitarian dictatorship where they ring the city alarm at 6 a.m. and everyone is mandated to go exercise. Some dumbbells, or even if you are not economically in the position to get dumbbells, get a few bricks, literally 2 bricks. Do this with them, do that, do push-ups, do rows, do lunges, do squats, do that in a circuit, 2 or 3 nights a week after you put your kids to sleep. There's your fitness.
Do you think practices like saunas, cold baths, and massages are helpful?
Saunas are cool. Where do you live, if you don't mind me asking?
I'm near Mumbai.
So Mumbai, you just walk outside, there's the sauna, okay? And so doing sauna in Mumbai would be confusing at the very least.
Welcome to the Health Podcast, where we cut through the noise and bring you straight talking on insight to transform the way you approach fitness, health, and your mindset. And today we have someone truly extraordinary joining us. Someone who doesn't just talk about fitness, he rewrites the rules of it. Dr. Mike Israetel, a PhD in exercise science, co-founder of RP, and a world-renowned expert. Hello, Dr. Mike. First of all, I want to thank you for joining us today. And second, I have to admit I'm a bit nervous because this is my first podcast with an international celebrity like you. So please forgive me if I ask any silly questions.
You're forgiven in advance, no problem. All I do is give silly answers anyway, so we're on the same page.
Okay, thank you. So Dr. Mike, I want to start first with your story. What inspired you to pursue a career in exercise science? What's the story behind your passion for this field?
I started lifting weights to try to get stronger, and then I liked how that went, and I liked looking more muscular, and I liked it so much that I did it a lot, and then I wanted to know how to do it better, and I already knew that science was probably the best path to the truth. And so I pursued an education for no other reason than to learn more myself so I can make better results myself. And of course, I started coaching people and helping other folks, and it turns out the education was helpful with that too. So it ended up being a way for me to help myself get as jacked and lean, as strong as I could. And then I ended up using some of that education and insight to help other people.
Oh, that's incredible. Well, I'm sure you must have faced some challenges during your journey. What were the biggest challenges you faced and how did you overcome them?
I would say injuries are a big challenge every now and again.
Okay.
And I would say that some muscles not growing as quickly as others or much at all is another big challenge. So on the injury front, I had to rethink about how I lifted, because I used to lift more explosively. I would control the descent of the lift less, bounce out of the hole more, try to lift kind of super tons of weight all the time. And I ended up developing better technique, more concerted, slower technique, more pausing at the bottom of the hole, higher repetitions ranges, not always taking things to failure. And then I also noticed that a lot of my injuries were occurring because I kept pushing my training forward and forward and forward, and the fatigue was quite high. And so I ended up learning how to manage fatigue, how to detect when I was quite fatigued and tired and my muscles weren't fresh anymore. And I learned how to take a few days or even a week or two off or of lighter training so that I could very much refresh all of the systems and structures. And that really brought my injury rate down considerably.
Mm-hmm.
And then for my challenge with some muscles not growing as much as others, it took a lot of work. One thing I did was I really tried to get meticulous on the technique of the exercises I was using. So, for example, if you are squatting, but you squat kind of more back and down, you might end up
Mm-hmm.
using a lot of glutes and less quads than could have. But if you re-architect your technique to go down and forward and let your knees really far over your toes, you end up using way more quads. And that'll help you grow quads if you haven't been getting them from squats. So I had to do a lot of technical stuff. Had to search for
Mm-hmm.
exercises that were a bit better. That's kind of how I discovered that exercises that train the muscle at longer lengths, at more of a stretch, seem to be more effective. So I intuited that a long time ago, and then it's been recently illustrated in the scientific literature that that's true. Another one is training volume. It looks like the more you train up to the point where you can't recover anymore, the more you grow. It's not linear, but it's kind of asymptotic. But really, a lot more volume than you think is what you can grow from. And
Mm-hmm.
a lot of times I was doing such high volume that you can't really do much more quality volume in a given session. And so that led me to experiment with higher frequencies. And so instead of training a muscle once or twice a week, I could train muscles that recovered quickly 3 or 4 times a week. And then I could get them to grow substantially more. And so that frequency addition was a really, really big deal. And another one is variation. So for me, some exercises work quite well, but then after a while, they don't work so well anymore, and you have to choose new exercises. So I played around with grip variations, repetition range variations, different angles of pressing and pulling, and entirely different exercises, and kind of weave them in and out. And so training stays fresh over the long term. And so those are some of the ways in which I was able to resolve a bit of the difficulties with injury and a bit of the difficulties with some muscles basically seeming to plateau or just not having as good of results.
Right, right. Yeah, my next question was already related to plateaus, but you have already answered that, I think. But I think sometimes people lose motivation, like because fitness feels repetitive. So, do you think at that time they should try new techniques or new training method? For example, if someone is training for hypertrophy, then they should try CrossFit or some another variation of training. Will that be helpful for that person to be consistent with their training?
Maybe. It's a good question. I think that if you're unable to do some difficult, repetitive things in your life consistently, your probability of success is going to be very low. You know, going to
Hmm.
work is repetitive, brushing your teeth is repetitive, and everyone thinks brushing teeth is boring, I think. Do they still do it
Yes.
because it's something adults do to be able to operate in the world? And health is so important that even if something is not the most fun thing in the world, that doing it consistently is a good idea, even if you no longer have the motivation. So that's where discipline can come in and really fill a couple of blanks. You don't always
Hmm.
need to feel like, you're super motivated for the gym. Like today, I have a workout later on coming up. Am I like amazingly excited for it? No, I'm looking forward to it, but not amazingly. And some days I don't want to train, but in many cases, I'll just do it anyway because it's the thing
Hmm.
that has to be done. And that's something that I think folks could help really realize it would help them. Another thing is there's lots of ways to vary training within a certain style of training without having to mix styles. Because if you go between CrossFit and hypertrophy training, you're really training for two very different things. And both of them help your general fitness to some extent, but it's really hard to build a lot of long-term fitness if you just do different stuff all the time. And it's actually quite easy to burn out if you do a bunch of different things because you don't really have progress on any one of them. You don't really identify with any one of them. And then sooner or later, you stop missing workouts. So I'd say there are many different repetition ranges. That's a 5 to 10, 10 to 20, 20 to 30 in the hypertrophy rep range zone. There are many different exercises. There are many different methods of rest pause training, and there's ways of training faster or slower, more rest time, less rest time. There's so many different ways to vary and so many different exercises to choose that you never have to get bored with hypertrophy training or strength training or CrossFit for that matter if you properly vary the variables inside of those modalities. But if you're bored with the idea of lifting weights altogether, I'd say it's probably a good idea to take a week off of training and you come back and you'll feel much better. A lot of times people get bored mostly because they're fatigued and then they just sort of too tired and too overwhelmed. And then if they reduce their fatigue with a week of no training, they can come back and do quite well with it. And I would say also there's a benefit to getting leaner. If you get substantially leaner and you see your muscles working and see how cool you look, a lot of times that helps a lot of people stay motivated to keep training. Whereas if you don't get very lean, your body kind of looks sort of similar all the time, even though you're training. And it can be a little demotivating to be like, I don't even know why I'm in the gym. I got to look the same all the time. And only dieting can make you as lean as you could be. So dieting is something that's very helpful there. So I would say those are some things to think about, which don't require you to completely switch your focus. And if you're able to go and do CrossFit for 6 months and then come back to hypertrophy training for 6 months and back and forth between those, that's totally great. That's a great idea. It's just for most people, I think they can really zone in to the specific thing that they're doing and really buy into it and keep doing it. And I think that is probably the thing to look at before you look at switching to other different styles of training.
True, that makes sense. But then some people will argue that, like you just gave an example of like brushing teeth sometimes feels boring, but you don't stop doing it. But like brushing teeth takes 15 minutes and training for your body, it a longer duration of time period. So I think some people will argue on that. But yeah, it makes sense. Like it depends on the individual and their choice. If they can do that, then I think it's good for them.
Yeah, another recommendation is to train with someone else or maybe a few people or even go to fitness classes in which there's many people. If you have a training partner or two training partners and it becomes a social activity where every day after work or 2 days a week after work, you go with them or before work and you spend the hour together and you push each other and you train hard and you laugh and you joke and you have a good time, you don't want to miss that. And you'll just keep going because your friends are there. So it's a really good idea to lift with people that you really like and who are on the same trajectory as far as goals. Because if you miss a session, sometimes you're sick and you miss a session, but you're sitting at home and you're like, damn it, the guys and the girls at the gym are having fun without me. I need to get to the gym. And so you actually really want to go, because if you just make yourself go and you hate it and you're the only person there and you have your headphones and no one talks to you and you don't talk to anyone, it could be tough for sure. And you just don't want to be there. But if you make it a more social activity, then a lot of times it can do a world of good. And then it doesn't have to seem like a chore at all. It's like driving to work by yourself or driving to work with 3 or 4 friends in the car with you that work at the same job. There's a very different drive because you just joke and laugh the whole time as opposed to just sit there and be pissed off that you're in traffic.
True. Okay. Dr. Mike, do you think social media has set unrealistic standards for what a fit body should look like? Sometimes looking fit, actually being fit can be often be two very different things. What do you think?
A lot of thoughts about this. On the one hand, yeah, like social media has a couple of sort of biasing factors, which can lead to a little bit of a misperception among people that expose themselves to it. Especially in fitness pages, some people forget that people almost always post only their best photographs and videos when they're in their best shape and the best lighting and the best tan and everything like that. There are a few biases that social media can have in its presentation, and that's some people just don't know about them. And so when they look at their social media, they think, oh, this is just how people look. But the reality is that most people post only the best angles of themselves. They post themselves only in the best light and their best shape. They might get in really good shape twice a year, take, 300 pictures every time and post 2 pictures a day of them in the greatest shape ever. And you're like, wow, these people always look like that, but they don't. And so that can be a really big illusion. Another thing is who you follow on social media tends to be biased. So I follow a lot of people who are IFBB pro bodybuilders, for example, But these are the very best people in the world, and this is who I follow. And if I was to, think that this was the standard of what men should look like, it would be insanely delusional, because there's only like 20 of these guys that look like superheroes. And if I think this is the standard, which the standard generally means average, and that's not the average at all. These are just the best of the best. And so that's another way in which, basically, how by constructing our own feeds, we end up putting a lot of bodies in front of our eyes that make our body, in comparison, seem not so good, because we follow people with incredible bodies. And your brain was evolved not for social media, but for the real world. And if you see a lot of shapes and faces and bodies, your brain just kind of assumes these are who my peers are. This is who's in my village. It's who's in my clan. And if everyone in your clan and village weighs 220 pounds and has a six pack all the time, you start to think of yourself as inferior. But then you go to the store, or you go to the market, or you go and you walk around the city, and you go, holy shit, I'm like the best shaped person out of thousands of people. Well, those are real people. That's what the real standard is. And so through those methods, social media can definitely pervert people's body images, or their images of how their bodies compare to others. That's definitely true. But on the other hand, it's less of a social media is doing this, and more of people are doing this through social media because they want to do this to themselves. They just don't really know any better. They just going where their feelings take them. So, for example, people will say, "Oh, the internet pornography, is very bad," and it might be bad in many regards. But so why does it exist? Because people go on the websites and they look at them. That's actually the only reason it exists. Nobody runs a for charity internet pornography website out of their own bank account where they get 0 viewers. So that solves that problem. And so when we say social media is doing it, social media is like one of the best mirrors we have ever had to ourselves. And we want to see fit bodies. We want to see the best people in the world. So if your social media is making you seem like, oh man, I'm in really bad shape, you should start following different people. My social media is mostly just dog videos, like videos of adorable dogs playing around, bulldogs and mastiffs and stuff like that. And it makes me happy to look at. So I scroll through my social media. I have a great time. But if I made my social media exclusively toxic stuff, like news about war and politics stuff that gets under my skin, and then a ton of physiques that I could never look like, I could be having a very, very bad time. So social media is curated to be exactly 100% in your control. That's what the algorithm is. The algorithm is only one thing. It just wants to show you stuff you want to see. So if you want to see stuff that makes you feel bad about your body, it's going to show you a ton, because it never judges you. It goes, you want to see this? Here's more of it. But if you want to see stuff that's more positive, and remember the fact that the people you follow for inspiration aren't the standard of appearance, then that's a really good thing to keep in mind.
True. It's true. But if we look at a point of view for a general fitness, so how important is the role of six-pack abs in someone's overall health? What should the ideal fat percentage be for a fit man or woman?
Mm-hmm. I would say I haven't seen a whole lot of research to show that there's something realistically that's too lean to be healthy. And in my own personal blood work, and that of many of the people's blood work that I've seen, the leaner a person is, the healthier they are. Now, much below 10% for males and much below 20% for females, you actually may be getting so lean that your testosterone isn't optimized, your estrogen isn't optimized, and bone health for females, energy levels for both sexes. So start to be some trade-offs there. But I would say for males, anywhere between generally 10 and 20% body fat is roughly equivalent for health in the long term, with 10 to 15 probably better, but not by a huge amount. And then for females, anywhere between 20 and 30% body fat is probably excellent, with probably no clear relationship that I can see within that. Like 20 to 25 might be no better than 25 to 30. And for many people, for males in the 20 to 25% body fat range, and for females in the 30 to 35% body fat percent range, they could be very, very healthy. So if it takes a lot of work for you to get below 20% fat, but you can maintain a healthy, fit, active lifestyle at 23%, that's probably awesome. And as a female, 33% is probably great. But as you get into the mid 30s and the high 30s for females, and the mid 20s and the high 20s for males, everything north of that, everything with higher body fat percentages, tends to be incrementally less and less ideal. And so, six pack abs, if you are genetically one of those people that gets them at 10 to 20% body fat, you're going to have abs and it's going to correlate to best health. And if you're female, same. But if you happen to be of a body fat range that's below 20 for males and below 30 for females, you don't have a six pack, getting a six pack probably isn't like the surest way to enhance your health. And there are other things like making your nutrition better, making your sleep better, making your stress management better, and putting on more muscle that are probably going to boost your health significantly more. Another one is getting more physical activity than just getting lean enough to get abs. But I would say is if you're on the journey to get abs and getting lean, the closer you get to having abs, it's probably true to say the better your general fitness will be.
Okay. And like the lots of advice which we get about training is mostly for the youngsters. But how should someone in their 40s or 50s approach fitness differently than someone in their 20s?
There are a few ways it could be different. One is older folks are more likely to get hurt. They're more likely to get injured because they're a bit more frail. And that means they should be approaching their lifting with a very, very keen attention to technique, which means, young folks can just kind of swing around and do whatever. And maybe they don't get hurt. Maybe they do, but they recover really fast, so nobody cares. But for older individuals, it's probably a really good thing to pay fine attention to technique and make sure that when you're moving around, you're doing so in a way in which you understand, okay, this is really close to the ideal technique of the exercise. You're not rushing, you're not swinging around, you're not bouncing out of anything. Another one, and that's a part of good technique, is control. So if you're doing a bench press as an older person, lower it nice and slow, pause on the chest and come up, as opposed to going really fast, so that could get you hurt. So that's a big one. Another one is how much weight you're using. And people who are young can train very productively with sets of 5 to 10 repetitions, which is pretty heavy, and productively even with sets of 2 to 5 repetitions. But older folks who are just getting into training can stay in the 5 to 10 repetition range, probably shouldn't go below 5 because the increased risk of injury, probably not worth it. And then eventually they can even experiment with a 10 to 20 or 20 to 30 rep range, which is even safer and confers even more of a cardiovascular advantage, which older people tend to benefit from. That's another one. Another one is easing in. Young people can start a workout routine, get really sore, really messed up, and then just be totally fine. They adapt to it. After a few weeks, they feel fine and they're making great gains. But older people should start with very little. So if you're an older person, you come to the gym for the first time, one working set of all of the exercises you need for your whole body, maybe 6 exercises, is all you need. And you need to take days to recover from that. When you're no longer sore, when you're no longer tired, when you're no longer stiff, you come back and you do one set of everything again. And then maybe next week you do 2 sets. And then a week after that, maybe 2, and then 3, and then 4. And then you're working out normally. So it's going to take a few weeks to kind of ramp into your overall workload, as opposed to just starting your program with 5 sets or something like that. And another one for older folks is they tend to accumulate fatigue faster, and it takes more time to reduce fatigue than young folks. So if you're an older person, after 3, 4, or 5 weeks of hard training, you probably need a week of easier training or no training at all to really reduce fatigue before you come back and start to do that ramp again for another 3 to 5 weeks. If you're a younger person, you might be able to train for months on end without having to take a break. So all of those things, I think, are a big benefit to understand if you're older and you're coming to training.
Well, I think about training, that will be enough for the viewers. But the one component which is lacking, I think, that is importance of mindset. So how important is mindset when it comes to live a fit life or start the fitness journey?
At the end of the day, it's the most important thing, because if you don't have the right mindset, there's nobody's going to force you to be fit. You don't live in a totalitarian dictatorship where they ring the city alarm at 6 a.m. and everyone is mandated to go exercise. That's definitely a good thing, but a lot of people just don't want it. So mindset is one of those things that if you build really good habits and you're consistent and you just understand that sometimes training is fun, sometimes it's not, and also you can go with friends and you're seeing great results, mindset takes a back seat to the actual whatever you're doing. But the initial idea and impetus to get you to the gym, and especially those first few weeks that are difficult and you're not in the habit yet of training, you're not used to it yet, it's not a part of your daily routine. Yeah, mindset's a really, really, really big deal and can be a make or break. And almost everyone in the modern world who doesn't exercise because of mindset, not because of any other reason.
True, that's true. But when it comes to mindset, the first name that comes to mind is David Goggins. Have you read his book, Can't Hurt Me?
No.
But maybe you have seen some content and
I have.
Yeah, okay, that's good. So what's your take on his approach? Do you think that type of mindset is necessary and is it sustainable for the majority of people?
No. I mean, it's not sustainable for the majority of people. It's a very bad idea for the majority of people. But David Goggins luckily has not claimed that the majority of people should be following his specific guidelines. And
But people when they watch such content, they don't know that is it for me or is it not. It's difficult for them to differentiate. Like they think, yeah, I need to apply these things in my life. That's the way to go.
Yeah. There is a combination of approaches that you can take. And the Goggins approach is a part of the right solution. Sometimes when you feel sorry for yourself, sometimes when you don't feel like going to the gym, you just have to shut up and do it because you're tough. And anytime you have a little victory against your momentum, and even though you didn't want to do something, you did it anyway, your brain learns and grows and it makes that habit of overcoming yourself more ingrained, which can make you better at it later. The thing is that there are two problems with that. If you overuse that push, that discipline, it burns out and then it's not there anymore and you just don't care. And then you have nothing to go on. And the other one is that if that's your primary motivation for training or your primary source of impetus as to why you go train, it's actually very negative, and it gives you a very bad time. It's kind of like if, let's say, you were, well, fuck, I'll give you an Indian analogy. Let's say you had a matchmaker and they made you go on 10 dates with women. And you did not want to go dates with any of these women, but you had to. Your mom and dad are like, you're going to do this or you're give us your last name back. Okay, fine. So you go. What's the best mentality to go? Well, so if you really have to go on this date and you're busy with schoolwork and you're like, Jesus, why do I have to leave at 7 p.m. tonight to go on this date? It's David Goggins mentality time. Just shut up, Viren, and just go on the date and just do your job, honor your family, go. Okay, fine. But 9 other dates is just going to drain the crap out of you to think so negatively. So maybe a different way to see it is to be like, okay, look, I don't have to marry any of these people, but dates are fun. And because there's no pressure on me, because I don't care, it's just my parents, I'm going to go and have a lot of fun for 2 hours at a time with potentially a lot of great girls. And so all of a sudden, seeing it from the positive perspective, you show up to the date, no problem. You have a great time. And all of a sudden, like, man, girl number 8 was awesome. I could definitely see her again. Boom. Next week, you're married, right? So it's one of those things where exercise, there's a time and a place for the negativity to be like, shut up and do what it takes. Definitely. And Goggins is really good about that. And everyone needs a sprinkle of that now and again. But a lot of the time, your motivation should be positively sourced. You want to go to the gym. You want to get in better shape. You want to get a little pain going because it's going to make you feel amazing afterwards. You're going to want to go hang out with your friends and be at fun and fit. And you're going to want to see your doctor in 5 years and he does your blood work and he says, dude, you're in incredible health, where everyone around you and your colleagues at work are like, my doctor's visit did not go like that. He said, I'm going to die real soon. And then you're like, man, this is awesome. Everything about the gym is this beautiful thing that helps me. Sometimes it's annoying and painful. And that's when little David Goggins inside needs to wag his finger at you and tell you, shut up and go lift. But most of the time, you need to be going for positive reasons that are reinforcing and make that habit great. Like when you're brushing your teeth, sometimes you're like, God damn it, all right. But a lot of times it feels good to get all the nooks and crannies in there. And you rub your tongue against your teeth. You're like, ugh, there's stuff on my teeth that's not supposed to be there. You get it off with a toothbrush. You do your tongue again, you're like, oh, that feels awesome. Your breath smells great. Everything's fresh and clean. So if you see your toothbrushing as a thing that helps you, then all of a sudden it's a really great thing. And a lot of times toothbrushing with children is a really big script flip in that situation occurs. Elementary school children who don't have much of a social consciousness, they don't care. And so you just like brush your teeth or else. So it's David Goggins time. But when they get into middle school, they get 12, 13 years old, they start caring what other people think about them, especially people of the sex they are attracted to. And then all of a sudden they're brushing their teeth every morning for 20 minutes because they're like, this is really important and I really care about it. So it's better to see exercise as a great, awesome thing that's annoying every now and again, and not just this thing that you have to just badger yourself into doing. Because remember, it's also voluntary. No one's ever going to force you to exercise. So if all of the memories you have of your exercise are just hate and pain, you're not David Goggins and you're probably going to burn out at some
Mm. True. I totally agree with that. I think that type of mindset becomes problem when youngsters don't want to learn about the process and they just want to be Arnold from the first day.
I mean, geez, don't we all? And that's cool. It's cool to want to be Arnold for the first day. But when you look at yourself after the first day in the mirror and you're still not Arnold, recalibration of reality might have to occur.
True. Yes, that's true. Okay. Yeah. Dr. Mike, many of our listeners struggle with time. What's the most efficient way to train when you have a busy schedule?
Yeah. So first pick a gym that's close by and or just have a pair of dumbbells at home that you can use. And then when you train your whole body at a time. Do exercises paired together that don't overlap each other. So you do presses, and then you do rows, and then with no rest, you do presses again, and with no rest, you do rows, and then you do shoulder presses, and then you do upright rows, and then you do curls, and then you do extensions, and each one is paired to the other, so there's no rest between sets. Maybe between exercises, you take 30 seconds to get a drink and you keep going. And by pairing your body like that with muscles that don't interfere with each other, one muscle is recovering, or one group of muscles is recovering when the other group of muscles is working, and so on and so forth. And so in 20 to 40 minutes per session, you can just destroy your entire body in the best way possible. And if you do that even as little as twice a week, you can get amazing results. So what I'm saying is that as little as 20 minutes twice a week can get you unbelievable results. And if you're busy in a certain week and you don't have time, 20 minutes twice a week, almost everyone can do in almost every case. And so that minimum is something you should be able to stick to. On the weeks in which you have more time, you can do sessions that last up to 40 minutes and take 3 or 4 sessions a week for those weeks. And so some weeks you do a lot, some weeks you do little, some weeks you do a lot, some weeks you do little, but you're always consistent and you're always showing up and you're always doing what it takes. And so with that method, you can make training very tough, very beneficial for cardiovascular metabolism and all that other good stuff, and also make it incredibly time efficient. And I'll also say one final thing. Most of the people that say they don't have time to train are just saying, I don't prioritize training in a different language, because almost every single person that I know that says they don't have time to train has a shitload of time for watching YouTube and Netflix and playing card games with their friends and sitting around. And relaxation and recovery are very important. But if you take a little bit of time, even just 20 minutes away twice a week from relaxation and recovery, you can get tons of training done. So I really hate it when I see people at the gym who say they don't have a ton of time to train a lot, but do a set of tricep extensions, not close to failure. They scroll on their phone for 3 minutes. They look around, they use the towel, and then they do another set and look around. And it's been 20 minutes already. And they're, later they're like, I just wasn't getting results. And it's like, you're just not suffering enough. You need to go a whole lot harder and a whole lot faster. And it's brutal, right? And that's where friendship helps a lot, because if you do that with friends, then everyone's suffering and everyone's having a good time. A great way to train is just get one friend to be your gym buddy. He does a set, you do a set. He does a set, you do a set. No rest. The only rest is you spotting them for their set. That's it. And then you do the next exercise, him, you, him, you, him, you. And in an hour or less, you can destroy the entire body. You do that 2, 3, 4 times a week. It's just not that much time. Think about this. The high end of my estimate of what it takes most people to get in incredible shape is 4 hours a week. I mean, that's not 20-minute workout. That's an hour workout. That's not twice a week. That's 4 times a week, right? But 4 hours a week, people spend 4 hours a day watching Netflix, man. And that's like average or something. And so 4 hours a week, when people say, well, I don't have time to exercise. Listen, as a longtime personal trainer and folks all over, you're involved clearly in fitness. You're an expert in your own right. How many times have you heard from people, well, I don't have time to train? A lot, right? Too many, more than you can remember. And how many times do you know for a fact that's true? Like, there's a few ways in which you don't have time to exercise. One is like you're in the special forces and you're in Afghanistan shooting people or something. Another one is like you're a neurosurgeon that does 18-hour surgeries. Okay, that day, don't train. But Viren, there's no neurosurgeon that does 18 hours every day of neurosurgery. That's not even a job. So when people say I don't have time, it becomes a real confusing thing to understand. In most cases, people have time. And if you get some dumbbells, or even if you are not economically in the position to get dumbbells, get a few bricks, literally 2 bricks. Do this with them, do that, do push-ups, do rows, do lunges, do squats, do that in a circuit, 2 or 3 nights a week after you put your kids to sleep. There's your fitness. But the big part of that is also the nutrition. And a lot of people have bodies that are quite out of shape, and then they don't really, lift because they're like, oh, but I'm in such bad shape. And they start lifting and some things happen, but they don't see much because they're so high body fat. And so getting the nutrition down is a really, really big deal. And there's not anyone in the world who doesn't have time for nutrition, because it takes more time to eat more food and it takes less time to eat less food. And eating less food is usually the best way to lose weight. So, yes, there are times situations where it's difficult to have time, but really it's just a matter of prioritizing. And my friend and colleague Menno Henselmans, he always he just says this even more directly. He's like, there's just no such thing as not having time for the gym. Another thing that he pointed out, and this is a little bit of a different thing, but very related, is it looks like, at least for the first few hours of exercise that you do per week, you get like 4 times as many hours back at the end of your life through longevity improvement. And so it's really an investment into your later years. And so you actually gain more time lifting than it costs you time to lift. And if you realize that, you're like, well, geez, that's going to be really awesome. It's like brushing your teeth before going on a date. If you don't brush your teeth, you're not getting to kiss anybody. If you do brush your teeth, you might get a few kisses here and there. Do you want kisses? Yes. Brush your teeth. But I don't have time. Okay, just don't go on the date. And they're like, well, okay, I do have time. I just don't like brushing my teeth. Well, then you're going to get what you're going to get.
So it's not a problem of time. It's all about priority. And yeah, I have read the Menno's book, The Science of Self-Control. I think he has given some great theories on it.
Yes.
Well, nutrition and training are crucial, but recovery is often overlooked. How important is recovery in the bigger picture of fitness, and what are some practical recovery tips that anyone can implement to improve their results?
Recovery is important, but you have to work really, really hard to make recovery a limiting factor. Recovery is important for Olympic athletes. It's not as important for regular people. As long as you're eating plenty of protein, then recovery is mostly handled. And the next one is getting plenty of sleep. enough to keep you rested without caffeine. 7 to 8 hours per night for most people is good. And the other one is to make sure you have times in your day and in your week which are purely dedicated for relaxation. So maybe some time in the evening, even if it's just an hour or so, we get to watch some television, talk to your family, relax, take a walk, really, really unwind before you go to sleep. And on the weekends, maybe take a little bit more time, really relax, really chill for a few hours on end. That's going to reduce your overall stress and it's going to be able to make everything better. But other than that, recovery is really just mostly about eating and sleeping and relaxing, and not a whole lot of other tricks that really, really pay dividends, unless you're a very elite athlete, and then you could use some more advanced strategy.
Like, do you think practices like saunas, cold baths, and massages are helpful? And
Not
should they be
really,
part
no.
of a fitness routine?
No, they're just, so certainly not for the people that say they don't have time for fitness. I mean, those things take way longer. Massages are nice, but anytime a human being touches you and you like the touch, it has almost every benefit that massage by a trained professional does outside of an injury management context. So for overall recovery, just cuddling with your BFF or whatever is just really about as good as massage. Saunas can be a nice tool.
So no need to go to Thailand.
Exactly. Well, yeah, it's a different level of cuddling in Thailand, maybe even better. So and then saunas are cool. Where do you live, if you don't mind me asking?
So I'm near Mumbai.
Mumbai. So Mumbai, you just walk outside. There's the sauna. Okay, and so doing sauna in Mumbai would be confusing at the very least. No, sauna is fun. It's nice for recovery, but it's almost exclusively the benefits of the sauna for recovery come from the relaxation that you get. And if you don't like being I hate to be in the sauna. It's hot. I can't stand it. And there are times in which I like it, but most times I don't. And so for me, it doesn't help me recover because I'm in there. And as soon as I get in there, I'm like, why the hell am I in here? Get me out. Stress, cortisol, no good. If you really, really like the sauna and it really helps you relax, then it's great. And then it can really have a big impact. And the cold stuff just doesn't have hardly an impact on anything whatsoever. And it's just one of the biggest fitness fads of generation, as far as I can tell.
And what are your thoughts on the growing trend of using like advanced recovery techniques like cryotherapy, float tanks, or red light therapy in conjunction with regular training?
Yeah. Red light therapy is just not researched well enough to show that it does a whole lot of stuff for recovery that we're interested in. It needs significantly more research. So I just don't know. And it's expensive, so I wouldn't buy it yet. Cryotherapy doesn't seem to have any effect on recovery. It does have an effect on muting inflammation and not allowing it to actually recover you. So if you have to play 2 very important soccer matches back to back on the same day, or one and then the day later another one, cryotherapy after the first match is great because you won't get stiff and sore. It doesn't help with recovery and overall adaptation in the long term. And float tanks are nice if you find them to be very relaxing and very comforting. But I'll tell you this, driving to the facility that has float tanks, putting on your swimsuit, getting into the float tank, being in the float tank, that's nice. That part's nice. Getting out, drying off, putting your clothes back on, driving back home, that's a whole lot of stuff. And if you have to have float tank in your gym already, or you happen to have float tank in your home and you're a billionaire, great, awesome. It could be very nice. But if you just recline in a comfortable chair and you watch a few episodes of Indian Matchmaker on Netflix, that's going to be like way better recovery than almost anything you could get in any other special sense. And it's essentially free. And so I would say another really awesome form of recovery is laughing and having fun with friends and family. It's scientifically illustrated to be immensely stress reductive, which is amazing. And it's also a beautiful part of your life. So there's 2 ways to recover roughly equivalently. One is to float in this dumbass tank all by yourself and think of childhood regrets. And the other one is just to laugh and have fun with your friends on a couch and have some drinks. And then that's just way better in almost every case.
Or do laughing yoga. There's a laughing yoga, if you know about it.
Yeah. Well, look, again, if you have to travel to laughing yoga through Mumbai traffic, I don't know how much laughing you're going to do, but if it's a short walk away, it might be a really good idea.
Good. Okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Mike, for sharing your time and wisdom with us. I'm sure our listeners have gained insights that will truly transform the way they think about fitness and health.
But
Awesome.
thank you so much for having me on.